If you've ever said, I'm doing keto, but I keep falling out of ketosis, this video is for you because ketosis isn't about willpower. It's about biology, hormones, and choosing foods that keep insulin low and fat burning turned on around the clock. Ketosis isn't about eating less, and that truth alone has shattered decades of diet lies. For years, you were told that fat loss was about calories, about discipline, about pushing harder while eating less, but biology never agreed with that story. Your body does not burn fat because you starve it. It burns fat when insulin stays low long enough for your metabolism to switch fuels. And that switch is not emotional, it is chemical. Insulin is the master hormone of fat storage, and every time it rises, fat burning shuts down, no matter how few calories you eat. This is why people can eat 200 calories a day, exercise daily, and still not lose weight, because insulin is quietly locking the fat inside their cells. Research has shown that insulin acts like a gatekeeper, and when it is high, fat cells are literally unable to release stored energy. That means your body is surrounded by fuel but trapped in an energy crisis, and that is when cravings, fatigue, and metabolic damage begin. Ketosis only happens when insulin stays low for hours, sometimes days, long enough for the liver to activate ketone production. Ketones are not a fad fuel. They are an ancient survival mechanism that allowed humans to thrive during periods of food scarcity. Before modern food, humans routinely went long stretches without carbohydrates, and the brain adapted by running efficiently on ketones. In fact, neurological research shows that ketones produce more energy per unit of oxygen than glucose, making them a cleaner, more efficient fuel for the brain. This is why people in ketosis often report mental clarity, emotional stability, and steady energy instead of crashes. But here's the critical part most people never hear. Even a small insulin spike can shut ketone production down. It doesn't take a candy bar. Sometimes it's just a healthy snack, a low-fat yogurt, or a handful of nuts eaten too often. The body doesn't care about labels. It only responds to insulin. Eating less without controlling insulin is like trying to drain a bathtub while the faucet is still running. You might see short-term weight loss, mostly from water and muscle, but fat loss stalls because the hormonal environment is wrong. Studies comparing low-calorie diets to low-insulin diets repeatedly show that people lose more fat and preserve more muscle when insulin is kept low, even when calories are higher. This is because insulin not only controls fat storage, it also signals hunger. High insulin leads to high hunger, which is why calorie-restricted diets feel like punishment. When insulin drops, hunger hormones like ghrelin decrease, and satiety hormones like leptin begin to work again. That's not willpower, that's physiology correcting itself. When insulin remains low long enough, the liver begins converting fatty acids into ketones, and this is when fat burning becomes automatic. Your body no longer begs for sugar every 2 hours. Blood sugar stabilizes. Inflammatory markers drop. Triglycerides decrease. HDL cholesterol often rises. These changes are not cosmetic. They are measurable markers of metabolic healing. In patients with type 2 diabetes, studies have shown that lowering insulin through carbohydrate restriction can dramatically reduce blood sugar levels, sometimes eliminating the need for medication altogether under medical supervision. This is not because calories disappeared, but because insulin stopped blocking fat metabolism. The tragedy is that many people try ketosis while still eating foods that quietly spike insulin. Lean protein eaten in excess, frequent snacking, hidden sugars, seed oils that increase inflammation, all of these keep insulin elevated just enough to prevent full adaptation. The body stays stuck between glucose and fat, unable to fully commit to either, and this metabolic limbo feels miserable. Fatigue, irritability, cravings, and the belief that keto doesn't work are often just signs that insulin never truly went low enough, long enough. True ketosis requires patience, consistency, and respect for biology. Once insulin drops and stays down, fat cells finally unlock. Stored fat is released into the bloodstream. The liver converts it into ketones. Muscles learn to burn fat efficiently. The brain adapts and begins to prefer ketones for fuel. This adaptation phase is where real transformation happens, not just on the scale, but at the cellular level. Mitochondria, the energy factories of your cells, increase their capacity to burn fat. Oxidative stress decreases, inflammation calms. This is why ketosis is being studied for conditions like epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and even certain cancers, because ketones change the metabolic environment in ways glucose cannot. The most shocking truth is this: your body wants to burn fat. It is designed to do it, but insulin has been chronically elevated by modern food, constant eating, and the fear of hunger. Every snack resets the clock. Every insulin spike delays ketosis. And yet, when insulin is finally allowed to fall, the body responds quickly and powerfully. People often report that after adaptation, they can go hours without thinking about food, not because they are restricting, but because their cells are finally being fed. Ketosis is not extreme. What's extreme is asking a fat burning machine to run on sugar every 2 hours for decades. When insulin stays low enough, long enough, ketosis becomes effortless. Fat loss stops being a battle and starts being a biological consequence. Energy stabilizes, hunger fades, focus sharpens, and the body does exactly what it was always designed to do: burn fat for fuel continuously, efficiently, and without struggle. The right keto foods don't just create ketones, they protect your metabolism. And that distinction may be the difference between temporary weight loss and lifelong metabolic health. Most people think ketosis is a switch you flip by cutting carbs, but the body doesn't work in shortcuts. Ketosis is a state your cells enter when they feel safe enough to burn fat, and that safety comes from nutrients, hormones, and cellular signals working together. When you eat the wrong keto foods, you might see ketones on a strip for a moment, but underneath, inflammation, insulin resistance, and mitochondrial damage continue quietly. This is why some people lose weight on keto but still feel tired, foggy, and hungry. Ketones were created, but the metabolism was never protected. Your metabolism is not just about burning calories. It is a complex communication network between hormones, organs, and cells, and food is the language it understands best. Certain keto foods speak the language of healing. Others speak the language of stress. When you eat ultra-processed keto snacks, artificial sweeteners, and damaged fats, your body may stay low carb, but it enters a state of metabolic alarm. Cortisol rises, insulin creeps up, inflammation increases, and fat burning becomes inefficient. Studies show that chronic inflammation interferes directly with insulin signaling, meaning even without carbs, the body can resist fat loss. This is why food quality on keto is not optional, it is foundational. Real keto foods stabilize insulin at a deeper level. Healthy fats like olive oil, butter from grass-fed sources, avocados, and fatty fish send signals of abundance and safety. These fats slow digestion, reduce glucose fluctuations, and lower insulin demand. Research shows that monounsaturated and omega-3 fats improve insulin sensitivity at the cellular membrane, allowing nutrients to enter cells without excessive insulin release. This is critical because insulin resistance is not just about blood sugar. It is about cells losing their ability to respond to hormonal signals. When that happens, the body stores fat even when food intake is low. The mitochondria are at the center of this story. These tiny structures inside your cells decide whether fat is burned cleanly or stored inefficiently. Poor quality foods damage mitochondria over time, reducing their ability to use fat for fuel. This leads to fatigue, stalled weight loss, and accelerated aging. But ketone-friendly foods rich in antioxidants and stable fats do the opposite. They enhance mitochondrial efficiency. Ketones themselves reduce oxidative stress compared to glucose metabolism, producing fewer free radicals per unit of energy. This means that when the right foods are eaten, ketosis becomes a state of cellular repair, not just fat loss. Protein quality also matters more than most people realize. Excess protein, especially from processed sources, can quietly raise insulin and shut down ketone production. But moderate amounts of whole food protein paired with fat preserve muscle while keeping insulin stable. Research consistently shows that muscle preservation is a key predictor of long-term metabolic health. Losing weight without preserving muscle slows metabolism and increases the risk of weight regain. The right keto foods protect muscle tissue while allowing fat to be used as fuel, creating a metabolic advantage that calorie-restricted diets never achieve. Electrolytes are another hidden factor. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium are not optional on keto. When insulin drops, the kidneys release more sodium, and without replacement, the body enters a stress response. Fatigue, headaches, heart palpitations, and cravings follow. These symptoms are often mistaken for keto being too hard, when in reality, the metabolism is undermineralized. Foods like avocados, leafy greens, bone broth, and unrefined salt restore electrical balance at the cellular level. This balance allows nerves, muscles, and the brain to function smoothly while fat burning continues uninterrupted. The brain is one of the greatest beneficiaries of the right keto foods. Ketones cross the blood-brain barrier efficiently and provide a steady fuel source that does not spike or crash. Neurological studies show that ketones increase levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a compound associated with learning, memory, and neuroprotection. This is why ketogenic diets have been used clinically for epilepsy for over a century and are now being studied for neurodegenerative diseases. But this benefit only occurs when ketosis is supported by nutrient-dense foods, not just carbohydrate avoidance. What's truly shocking is how quickly the body responds when given the right signals. In as little as a few weeks, triglycerides drop, inflammation markers decrease, and insulin sensitivity improves. These changes are not cosmetic. They are measurable improvements in disease risk. Cardiovascular research has shown that reducing insulin and triglycerides is more predictive of heart health than lowering total cholesterol alone. The right keto foods address the root causes of metabolic disease, not just the symptoms. The modern food environment trains people to fear fat and trust labels. Low carb does not mean metabolically safe. Keto does not mean healing. The body does not read packaging. It reads fatty acid profiles, micronutrient density, and hormonal responses. When those signals align, ketosis becomes stable, hunger fades, and energy becomes reliable. When they don't, the body resists, even if carbs are low. The real power of the right keto foods is sustainability. They don't rely on constant tracking, obsession, or deprivation. They create a metabolic state where the body regulates itself. Appetite becomes intuitive. Energy remains steady. Fat loss becomes a side effect, not a struggle. This is why people who focus on food quality, not just macros, are the ones who stay in ketosis long term. Ketosis was never meant to be a short-term trick. It is a metabolic state that, when supported correctly, allows the body to return to its original design. The right foods protect the metabolism, fuel the brain, stabilize hormones, and restore cellular energy. And when that happens, fat loss is no longer forced. It is inevitable.